Absolutely brilliant. Oh, this is exciting. Look at the glamour of the screen, Anne, that we're looking at. It's fabulous.
Yeah.
My goodness me. So I'm sort of here, but I was sort of invited to be here by the wonderful Chris and Kath. So I hope they turn up, or else we're just going to have to start drinking heavily, Julia, I think, which we've never done.
No.
I'll get the Black Sambuca down and we'll have a time, Julia. My goodness me. Fantastic. Hello, Mon. All my favourite people in the universe. She can't hear me yet, I don't think. Hi, Mon is connecting to audio. Hi, Mon. Sweetness, where are you, darling?
In Adelaide.
Where?
In Adelaide, home in Adelaide.
Oh, you're in Adelaide. Last email I got from you were heading off into the universe. So that's fantastic.
I'm heading off in 3 weeks to Kawanyama as my first remote nursing experience. I'm really looking forward to that.
That is just absolutely fantastic. Oh, you're a star, Mon. Oh, all my favourite people. Barb, how are you?
Hi, Tara. Yeah, I'm good. I'm at home, in my kitchen. Lovely to see everybody.
Well, can I say you need to do your own bloody cooking show with that. That's Nigella Lawson 101, that kitchen. Look at that.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have clearly failed as a woman here. This is unbelievable. So it's ironic that I'm doing this session. Unbelievable. And I see Michelle's on the call. Michelle, how are you, my darling? I haven't seen you in probably a year.
I'm good, thank you, Tara. Yes. How are you?
Very well, thank you, my love. That's tremendous. It's just great to see
There we
you.
go.
You're cool. That's helping me. Love a bit of coral. What a colour that is.
Summer is there. Summer is here.
Yes, it's had no impact clearly on Jackie and I. Once a goth, always a goth. Jack, good morning. Do I get a good morning? I don't even get a good morning anymore.
Hello.
Jackie, you're so famous on the internet now that you just wave like the Queen Mother now, do you, Jack? It's like,
Hi, Tara.
How are you? Oh, you are a star. Look, I've been sending good energy to the universe, my darling. Are you well?
Yes.
I'm
well.
Well, this was sort of your suggestion, and it was Chris's suggestion and Kath's suggestion.
I think mostly Kath, to be fair. She was our guiding light on this one. She thought of it straight away. So I'm going to...
She is a lovely human, so I don't know if the people that we can blame for this session are actually here. Mon, this could be the final sort of Guy Fawkes event in my deanship. It's like we're all here, none of us have a Black Sambuca, and we're wondering what's the nature of our lives, really.
Yes.
Unbelievable. So look, colleagues, I'll try and make a bit of a start until our minders arrive, so I can create a fair amount of havoc. So Clara, how are you, my darling? Oh, I've always wanted to have a seminar with someone like sleeping. Maybe we should all be doing that angle.
I have bronchitis, and it's just easy to lie down, or I cough all the time, and I don't want to interrupt everybody. Like,
you
packing
won't.
up my lungs.
No, Clara, that's like life goals for me. That's how I'm going to run seminars for the rest of my life. That's just fantastic. But darling, you're okay?
I'm alive. I'm getting there.
Look, that's sort of 2021, isn't it, really? Isn't it, Mon? I'm alive. I'm alive, really, and that's great. You've got a very posh pillow. Look at that bed head. I'm in the market for a bed head.
It's from IKEA, because I'm high class. It was about 10 years ago, but I'm sure there's a lot of princess beds out there.
Right, it's a princess bed. Oh, I need me a princess bed.
I never had one as a kid. And I was like, I'm 33. I can have a princess bed.
Look, I'm 52 and I'm going to get myself a princess bed, clearly. Fantastic. And Kate, darling, you got in. Welcome, my love. Oh, again, she's doing a Jackie Hewitt.
Oh, me? Yes, hi. Thank you. I'm excited.
You look absolutely gorgeous. So look, what should we do, Mon? Should we sort of just kick on a bit, because the people we're sort of hosting are not here? Should we just kick on? Or Barb's going, yeah, look, let's just, Barb, you and I'll do this. We can manage this. So look, colleagues, I was asked by some remarkable humans who I love more than life if we'd sort of do a Q&A or a chat or a vibe for tough times, to think about women and leadership. And Barb, you remember, like, I've been doing gigs. Women and leadership was a phrase. And it's been a phrase for about 25 years. And then, you know, someone would get on a stage in a posh suit and they'd, you know, have a bitter espresso and they'd talk about empowerment, you know, they talk about mentoring, and then they'd go and have a muffin. And that was sort of women in leadership. And it's sort of been women in leadership like that for about 20, 25 years. And in the last few years, the phrase women in leadership has declined in its significance and its currency. And I was interested in that. And noting that Kath Kevin has now appeared and I'm simply her warm-up act, that's sort of how we got into this story, I think, colleagues, that what is the future? Whether we're dealing with, you know, Kylies and TERFs and the precariat and profound post-pandemic reality, what is going to happen to women and or leadership, and what happens when we connect them? So, Kath, that I was your warm-up act. The ukulele's away. Good morning, Kath Kevin, light of my life. Oh, mute. Mute. Can I do something? Can I do something? Can I unmute you?
Bottom left corner, Kath.
And of course, the great thing, Barb, it's on the left too. The one great thing about 2021 is we focused a little bit more on the left, as we should. So, Kath, can I do anything to help you?
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay. It's my new 3 computer system. I didn't know you were just my warm-up, Tara.
I've always been your warm-up act.
Well, I'm sure I'm not the only person who's asked you to do this, but I asked you to do this because I feel as though you have been a model of a woman in leadership since you arrived that is very distinct, very powerful. And, you know, I sort of watched you from afar before I went into my role as HDR coordinator for the college. And I thought this will be really interesting, getting closer to Tara, working more closely with her and seeing what it's really like. Maybe this is just, you know, the front face of Tara. What's she like in the background doing the kind of, you know, when I see her in the meetings on a regular basis and do sort of crisis talks around issues. And I discovered that Tara is incredibly consistent. You know, the kind of the energy and the generosity and the sort of mastery of the space is consistent across all of the places and that I've encountered her, and in all the different sort of, I suppose, with different proximity to the work. So you know, I'm so sorry that Tara is leaving us. And one of the things, I suppose, Tara, is that you do it very much your own way. You know, you have a very striking style that is generous and energizing. But also, one of the things I wanted to ask you, and this is not about the future of leadership, but it is, I was just thinking about it on my way back to my office, is that what you seem to be able to do is maintain a rigorous critique of the way universities work and the power structures that determine some of the really difficult aspects of our jobs. And so there's something very sort of real about, I think, the tensions and the conflicts that I suspect you experience kind of at the top of the leadership, you know, in that sort of top tier. So you do the work, you recognize the goals of the university, you work towards them, but at the same time, I think you give colleagues a sense that you understand that there's a lot that is wrong about the way the university system works, and that within your role you push back against it wherever you can. So I just wonder if that is sort of instinctive, or if you have learnt when to be critical, when to hold back. Do you have a kind of set of rules that you go by, or do you just do it quite instinctively?
Oh, look, Kath, that's a great question, and what a privilege to meet everybody, and what a privilege to see you today. And look, Kath, my experiential ideology into leadership, and obviously there's a leadership literature that I refer to a lot, but my experience of leadership in higher education is of toxicity, where the people in positions of power have behaved disgracefully, and it has cost people their lives. It's cost people their livelihoods. It's cost them their families. A great colleague of mine hanged himself, shaved himself down, and hanged himself in his own garage, right? So I have seen for 25 years lying, and debilitating conversations and bullying and attacks. My beloved late husband, Steve Redhead, had excrement put under his door, and he was a full white male professor when that happened. So every possible horror that you could imagine, I have seen in academic life. And there are many causes for that. I think one is homology, the endless replication of the same people in power over and over again. In interviews, they ask the same questions and they hire people just like them. And they've done that for 20, hi Sue, they've done that for 20 or 25 years. And of course, it is a declining or debilitating arc. So it means we're endlessly hiring people in positions of leadership. They have no teaching qualifications, no teaching expertise at all. They certainly have some research, but it's research in particular disciplines and paradigms. And in terms of service, it's a very particular mode of service in a university in the governance committees. So the housework of university leadership, you rarely see in the leadership model. So Kath, for me, after I'd seen this scale of horror and I'd managed somehow to claw myself into a professorship, and it was really claw myself up there, and I'd seen people kill themselves. I'd seen great colleagues of mine have to move their entire families, their kids, their missus, everything because of the behaviour of one mongrel. And I went, enough. And I went, I'm going to have a go. I'm going to have a go. And it involved, Kath, things like relinquishing tenure. But as I've said so often in my life and career, we're all the precariat now. And I think the pandemic has shown that. So the casual staff lost their job first, and then the contract crew, and now the permanent tenured staff are. So we're all precariat now. So I relinquished tenure, and I just tried, Kath, to try and be brave and try and not think about the future. Because a lot of us, we're bright people. You are bright, extraordinary people. And through our whole life, we're socialised to think about the future, the mortgage, get the car, get the kids, get the husband. And I had to reprogram myself, Kath, so that I lived in the moment. And so if I do have a trope for leadership, and again, I still have problems with that word, but if I have a trope, it is, Kath, that I've made a decision to live in a moment. I've made a decision to live in a moment with a person. And Kath, you and I have shared those moments. So the past is gone. The future isn't promised. All I can do in leadership is sit in a moment with somebody and try and provide some strategies and some options for that person outside of the moment. So that's probably, one trope through. Does that answer the question, Kath?
Yes, I think it does. And maybe, I suppose, and maybe it does answer the question, but maybe just to kind of drill down a little bit, are there do you have a practice of kind of self-censoring your critique in certain scenarios and allowing it to flourish in others?
Look, I probably don't. It's funny you said that I am consistent. I'm this weird all the time. I actually am. Those of you that know me a long time, this is how I actually am. Like this is it, right? So, and I suppose, Kath, I've never been too bothered what people think about that. I mean, Jack knows me. Jack's known me for 25 years. I've been as mad as this for 25 years, right? Because I don't live my life for the position, for the opinion of other people, right? I'm not too bothered. I want to care for people, nurture them, have great relationships. But if people are going to be a bit gnarly and aggressive and all the rest of it, that's their business. But I suppose, Kath, I don't have a censoring. I don't. There are times certainly where I will remain silent, but I think we all know the powerful resistance and critique of silence. I think we all know that very powerfully. But Kath, you've seen me do this. I use a lot of sort of performance art experience. I do a lot of work on Yoko Ono, as you might have worked out. And, besides getting in a bag and screaming, there's a lot of things you can do in terms of resisting capitalism. And one that I use a lot, Kath, and you and I have been in meetings where I've done this, is I start almost with a joke, but with a phrase which is, well, look, as a Marxist, as a Marxist, and that often freaks people the hell out. So at that point, they can switch off, where you go, well, the reason this is happening is obviously the hyper state of late capitalism. So I actually put these phrases in, as an Althusserian Marxist, and then, of course, certain groups of the culture have no idea what to do with that phraseology. So they either ignore the phrases that come after it, or they're just so confused, they just sort of go to the toilet or have a black sambuca. Hi, Sue.
Hello. How are
Love
you?
Sue. There's your flowers, Sue.
I see them there. That little butterfly's still flying around.
The butterfly's flying around you, rock, Sue. Kath, where do you want to go now, my darling?
Well, I was just going to say that leadership is a buzzword in the environment at the moment, isn't it? Can you hear me? Am I coming through?
Sue. I'm so in agreement with you. I'm going to explode. Yes.
And on our Stand Like Stone Foundation, our community foundation, we get hundreds of applications for grants to provide leadership courses for children in school and stuff like that. And I'm just thinking, there's a danger in having a tribe of leaders, and B, what are we training these children up to lead? Yeah. And are we training them up to be leaders as individuals, or are we training them up to understand the leadership process? And I was reading some of Fran Baum's work last night, and in the health system, for example, we've lost the collaboration of the people, the workforce. We have the leaders who tell us what we're going to do, but we have no collaboration with the workforce who are on the ground doing the work about how that's going to work.
You are so wise, Sue, and that's absolutely accurate. There's bloody leadership programs everywhere. I've been counting the leadership programs at Flinders. It's like, so the first thing is there is a fantastic slice of literature on followership, which I recommend to colleagues. So the followership literature is magnificent. So how does one engage in work with colleagues to move forward in one's life? So followership is great. But I'm not only cynical, but I've seen that many leadership courses. And have you ever noticed the more top down the power structures get, the more repressive, the more destructive, the more bullying the power structures get, the more leadership courses that are offered? Has anyone else noted that? I don't know if it's a correlation, Jack, or causal, but it's bizarre. So for me, leadership is actually a prophylactic for an institution that's not managing, right? Because it's a barrier to stop us from seeing the reality of what's happening in work and leisure and family life, Sue. That's what I really think. So, because everyone wants to be a leader. Everyone thinks, oh, look, I'll get the posh car, I'll get the posh title, so I'll do a leadership program. If I can just have the right mentor, then I won't be in the precariat anymore. And leadership programs are lying to us, Sue.
Yeah, and also I question the backgrounds of the leadership trainers. Like, what are their, where do we know what they've actually achieved and what their forte in the leadership sphere is? We can see that they've got letters after their names, or that they've got some other kind of recommendation, but what history do they actually have? And how do they really understand their role as leaders?
See, and so I will tell a funny story at this point, which is absolutely true at my last university. Jack, it'll be no surprise to you, it's a regional university. There was sort of a team of middle managers, and a couple of them did not get on well with each other and were having scraggies in the car park, right? And so to try and get these middle managers to get on, they took us all on a retreat, as you do, right? And they hired a leader to offer, consultation to try and get the team to behave better, right? And the bird they brought in, bless her, the bird they brought in, we asked what was her expertise in handling middle management in higher education. And so she stated, no, what I do is I do leadership training for prison guards. Now, I asked her, I sort of went, wow, this is going to be a good 2 days. And I asked her, so what do you think are the transferable skills from handling prison guards to middle managers in a regional university? Could you tell us about how that knowledge moves? And needless to say, she got very angry at me. So I got some anger, mate. I got some anger. And I still to this day, after the 2 days in Canberra in an airless room, can you imagine, Sue? I'm not quite sure how. I think there's the notion that you've got leadership in this sector and it magically moves, and I don't think it does.
Yeah, no, well, I just think that, you know, if you're going to learn to be a leader in a particular field, you need to be trained by people who are experienced in that field.
And the whole point is leadership is not decontextualised. Leadership emerges from a context rather than top down.
Yes. And we're seeing so much top down these days. This is what you're going to do. This is how you're going to do it. And this is the money we're going to give you to do it.
Yeah.
And nobody says, how does that sit with you? Or, oh, this is much less than your previous budget, but you'll manage.
And Sue,
Sue? Sorry.
Go, Kylie.
I'm just listening because I don't sit within that academic space. I'm sort of studying but work in the professional sort of field. What I'm hearing is we're talking about leadership. That's management. What we're talking about is management telling people what to do. That's not true leadership.
No, you're right. You're right, Kyle. You're right, Kylie. But also, can I say the notion? I'm getting a little bit worried about the notion that there is authentic leadership. I think you're absolutely right. The difference between administration, management, and leadership we need to talk about. In the old days, Kylie, I used to say administrators fill in forms, managers write forms, and leaders rip up the forms, right? But I think my worry is I agree there's terribly poor inverted commas leadership management convergence. But what I'd also say, Kylie, is we've got to look at the very different models of leadership that exist and operate with what works now. So there's obviously charismatic leadership, and that's the vice chancellor model. That's what vice chancellors are, and a lot of heads of corporations. Then there's authentic leadership, but for me, it's always been Robert Greenleaf's servant leadership that has made the most sense to me. So I think servant leadership, understanding the context, understanding who your people are and what is meaningful to them. It's dealing with meaningfulness, I think. Does that work better, Kylie?
Very much so. And I shouldn't laugh because I started actually enjoying it. My old place that I worked for, moved a year and a half ago for that very reason, was the authentic and also the servant leadership I was showing with my team pissed off the team lead, like the office manager, because she couldn't do that. She just did the typical manager but thought she was a leader. So I just started playing with the head. So and then moved on. But that's just me. But I think that it's really important for people to understand that difference. So
yeah. Oh, you're absolutely right. And I really think, Kylie, that we need to unpack the word leadership. So I think it's thrown around. It's what wonderful Kath said. It's thrown around so much now that it's meaningless. It's become the bajillion, empty signifier. It's just, what does it mean? And all we know is people who we despise use the word leadership in every third word like a comma. So, what's going on there? Kath, should I go to the wonderful Claire? How are you, Claire?
Yes, please.
Hello, I'm good, thanks. How are you? You're energetic and ready to go.
How are you going, superstar?
I'm good, thank you. I have a question about how you've got around the stigma of being a wonderful female in leadership. I know that there's a few comments that have come through since, but when we act and when we talk to our children, I've got a girl and I've got a boy. Boys seem to be very good as leaders and very almost dominant. And then the girls, when they show the same qualities, are then bossy and it takes a whole different negative connotation. So how have you addressed that, I suppose, to date in your career?
Well, two strategies, Claire. The first one is to protect others. So the first is, if I ever see any other human attacked, and Anne, you and I have been through these scenarios so often when you were in our wonderful office. So whenever any other human is attacked, you immediately intervene. You never sit silent. You must say something. You must do something. You must log it with people and culture. You must log it with line managers. You must make a lot of noise. So the first thing is I just go, that's inappropriate. I start doing weird banshee stuff, right? So the first thing is, team, we've got a problem here. Let's stop everything. We've got an issue. We've got an issue. We need to stop. We've got an issue. So the first thing is we all must rally and swarm and protect each other at every possible opportunity. But the second gig, Claire, and look, it's come from seeing the diabolical state of our universities and the brutality of them. But also I think, Claire, it's come from those of us, and a lot of us on this call, when you lose somebody. So I lost my husband. And when Steve died, I just said, well, my life's over. My life's over. My life died with him, right? And so then from there, your life changes, Claire, because you start to realise sort of the pointlessness of life, the complete, because you're going to die, right? And there's nothing coming. Trust me, team, there's nothing coming. You're going to die. And so then what matters is today. And so, Claire, how I've handled it is I try and live a good day because tomorrow's not promised. But I also don't give a rat's ass what anybody says about me. I really don't. So I was in a meeting, I think about 6 weeks ago, we might have colleagues in this meeting, with some random male professor from the sciences in the middle of a public meeting called me an armoured bitch, which I thought was, oh no, that's great. No, it's fantastic. I'm going to write, can you imagine how many articles I'm going to get out of armoured bitch? My goodness. So, and of course, I sort of, the bitch I'm used to, that bitch, really? Oh, say something I haven't heard for the last 52 years. But I particularly enjoyed the armoured, can I say, Claire? The armoured bit, I went, oh, gee, can I make that a book title? That's tremendous. So, of course, I then laughed, but also explained to the very horrified people in the group that, look, that's inappropriate behaviour and you need to calm the farm. I will not calm the farm, you armoured bitch. So you need to calm the farm. So let's just all relax and let other people speak. But then, of course, Claire, what I did the next day is I reported him to the line manager. Not for me. I said, don't do anything about it, but I just want that logged. So when a PhD student, you hear that a PhD student, something bad has happened with this particular person, that you've got a paper trail. Mm. So, Claire, part of it is just, life is short. We die, it means nothing. So make today matter and be robust and have a laugh and go for it, but then protect others who may not be an armoured bitch.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I suggest that when you write that book, you should send him a signed copy, just as a matter of a side point. But that's really great. And I really like the fact that it is about swarming and protecting your people. And I know that that's something that's changed in the media and with our outlook and social media in particular, is that it seems to have been previously that women would sacrifice other women for their own gain, but it seems to be a change in the narrative where we're swarming to support each other, which is why there has been some progress.
Oh, Claire, gee, I hope so. And look, we've all, and I'm sure we all talk about it here. Can I just get people to randomly put their hands up? Who, if they listed their 3 or 4 worst bosses, at least 2 of them would be women? How many people? Yeah. So that's the generational change we've got to stop, I think, Claire, because, and look, those women were dreadful humans. We can't pretty this up and say, oh, look, they've got a vagina, therefore everything's terrific. It's like, no, they were dreadful people, and they were dreadful people because the system requires that you have this type of brutality to get on, whatever you got in the genital area, right? So it's the socialization that creates it, and the vagina is not a mitigating step in it.
Great. Thank you, Tara.
You're the best in the universe, Claire. Rock and roll. Oh, beautiful. Anna Maria, how are you? Oh, can I go there? Where's my Kath? Kath, organise me.
Oh, yeah. No, I was just going to point out, I couldn't see if you could see Anya. And I just also wanted to just ask people to put their mutes on if they're not talking, just because we're getting a bit of background noise.
Which I sort of like. It's a bit sort of craft work, but still that's okay. Anna Marie, my darling, hello.
Hi, Tara. It's Anya here. So sort of following up on what Claire was saying, I wonder what you can comment on the sort of accountability that the female leaders are sort of set against. And obviously we always expect more integrity from female leaders. I'm just following very closely. There has been a big expose in Science Journal about the director of Max Planck Institute that has been demoted, removed from her role as a director, and she happened to be my ex-PhD supervisor. So I just send you that article link in the chat. But it is very surprising. I know Nikki very well, and her husband has been in many roles as a senior academic as well, and he has committed loads of misconduct over the years, and he's never been held accountable. Yet it is Nikki who's taking the shove. And I'm always, I'm always surprised how men can often get away with things, and women in leadership position are just labeled, crazy bitches, basically, as you said, and made accountable, or just leave themselves because they feel that they lost their integrity. So I wonder what your opinion is about that.
Look, and I think a lot of that comes from the narrative that we've all lived with, and that's, I think, because women's lives too often have been narrativized through the virgin and the whore binary opposition. So we're either the good girl that works well in the organisation, or we're the slapper that's the problem, right? And that's the binarised nature of our life. And I think the problem, and I think that's a magnificent argument you've used there, is that we want women to be better than men in a patriarchy. But it is very hard for anybody to be an authentic, careful, caring, accountable human being in the patriarchy. And so we want women to behave better. So that's the first thing. And it can't happen because how they've got there is they've had to do a lot of deals to get up there. And of course, Hillary Clinton is the great example of that. We will never have a better person to be a nominee for president, but she had to do too many deals to get up there, and no one gave a damn about Trump and all the bits he was grabbing. But Bill Clinton's impact on her was enormous. So that's the second point I would make, is for women to get into a position of leadership, we often have to have a much more arduous pathway up. So instead of sort of a horse galloping through the field, which is how I think of men galloping into leadership, and it's free and they can do it and the system doesn't impact on them. With women, I often think we're like goats going up a mountain, right? And we're sort of hanging on there and, oh, this is pretty tough, and that wind's a bit, oh, God. And if you notice women's pathway, the women who are vice chancellors, the women who get somewhere in the top end of town, if you notice, and I have studied it, they have to take much smaller steps to get there. So, they're assistant, acting, deputy, dean to the PVC, hashtag plumbing. So they do all sorts of little tiny jobs in much smaller steps to claw themselves into leadership. Whereas, blokes have the nice narrative of head of school, dean, PVC, DVC, and then you're a DVC, you play in the DVC pool for a couple of rounds, and then you pop up. Whereas for the women that do get there, they're beaten up a bit, I think, mate. I think they're beaten up, and they're older, and they've sacrificed. So the rates of divorce for women in leadership is higher, whereas of course men who are married, they're safe because their sperm works and stuff. So if a bloke is married and like children, oh my goodness me, so then men that like are procreative, that they do very well in the leadership narrative. That's the good masculine narrative, whereas women with the complexity and the wonder of a woman's caring responsibilities, generation up, generation down, that's a problem. And our universities are so far away from a family-friendly workplace that we can't even go there yet, right? And so for me, by the time women get somewhere, they're older, they've had to muck about in stupid systems, they've got knocked around the head a few times. And so when they sort of got there, they're sort of like a thunderbird. They're like, oh, well, I'm here. And they haven't got the energy left to try and do something positive because they're busy hanging on. That's my reading of the narrative. Now, I could be wrong, but Kate, are you straight in? Kate, talk to me. I could be completely wrong there, but that's how the female vice chancellors get up, and they're older when they get there. Kate.
Hi, can you hear me?
I certainly can, you glamorous person.
Let me tell you, it's a wig, because I haven't been to a hairdresser's for months.
Well, I'm going to get me some of that, mate. I'm going to get me some of that. That looks tremendous. Gee, that'll save some time. Thanks, Kate.
$25 wig.
How much? How much?
About $25.
That's going to change my life. I'm spending more money on bloody conditioner than that's worth. My life has changed today. Kate, thank you for sharing that with us.
Now, all I want to say is that I've never really wanted to be a top leader. I think I'm more of a supportive leader type person, but I've been a nurse for 50 odd years. I'm hoping to finish my PhD one day, but a couple of years ago, a very senior professor thought that my work was great. And she said to me one day, "You're not a nurse anymore, you're an academic." I went, no, I don't want to be an academic. I'm a bedside nurse. I've spent years and years in aged care facilities as a wound care consultant. So I love the care staff. That's where my heart is, that's where my soul is, in aged care at the bedside. And if the staff are busy, I'll feed the residents, or I'll help to lift or toilet or change. I'm not a leader. I don't want to be a professor. I just want to maybe help the aged care staff.
And Kate, anyone else with me, if that ain't a leader, girlfriend, I'm not sure what is, right? So the first thing is, what you just captured there, Kate, is the culture does not want the plurality of women. This culture does not want us to be carers and nurturers and dancers and singers and cleaners and cookers and party on people. They want to be able to go virgin whore, understandable part of the project, crazy bird, not part of the story, marriage material, not marriage material, can have kids, can't have kids. And so the culture wants the complexity of us to be discarded. And so what you're doing, Kate, is you are fleshing out what a woman is. And in so many ways, that's the Helen Sassoon project that got so many of us started on this journey 25, 30 years ago. You are embodying what a woman is. And by embodying what a woman is, Kate, you are enhancing humanity. And that is leadership.
I think the same professor hated nurses. She actually told me that. But what she wanted me to do in my thesis, there's 150 references to nurse or nursing or whatever. She told me to delete all those and I said, I can't. It completely changes the whole, there is no thesis without nurse and nursing. She said, oh, just put in health practitioner. I said, I'm not a health practitioner. I'm a bedside nurse.
Nurse, sort yourself out. And
I haven't finished my PhD, but you know the stories.
But you will, Kate. And the point is, you can be a scholar, a magnificent researcher, and a nurse. Life is not or.
No.
Life as a woman is and. And you are and.
Thank you.
You are precious. Where are we going now? This is bloody exciting, isn't it? Oh, where are we going? So have I lost my gorgeous Kath? Where is she? Hi, Kath.
No, I'm here, and there are still some hands up. Anya's got her hand up again, but also Clara, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I did. I was thinking a lot of this stuff actually starts as a student, as part of the institution. And I remember my biggest victory and my biggest success and my biggest loss was that I was actually trying to be a good person doing something. And what really struck me is you're talking about, management and leadership skills being, a really important part of that process. But at the same time, what we really need is like the decent human part of it, like the humanizing element. And it's not just women, but the fact is, like, I was trying to actually do something that would be really, really helpful. Ended up having to resign from student council because they were the same people year after year. And there wasn't any change to generate conflict, and when I say conflict, I mean the kind that's creative. So I think it's like a really interesting part of all of this we're talking about. As Tara was saying, it's the same people over and over again.
Yeah. And as you rightly said, Clara, and you are an amazing person. We just need you well and fabulous because you are changing the world every day, darling. But as you've rightly said, it is about having humans with humanity. But my feminist engagement with this is that women, whatever we put in that category, and I'm very cool with lots of things being in that category, but women have been pushed down historically through patriarchy. So to have a fully fleshed humanity with the best people leading us, the best people like Kate fleshing out what it means to be human. We need people that are able to come to the table as equals, not as some people coming to the table supposedly as equals and the rest of us in the car park. So that's when we have humanity, I think.
Anya, did you have another question?
Yeah, I did. Just very briefly, Tara, you mentioned Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton, and how Hillary Clinton had been perceived through the through the vision of Bill Clinton, and seeing that now with the case of the director of Max Planck, she's also perceived through the face of her husband, even though she's a senior leader. So I'm wondering whether you have any advice or to women who are married to men who are also high up or potentially will one day, and how that kind of relation had played out over the 25 years of your career, with people who are both in the similar department, potentially working as couples.
Yeah. Look, I've been married so often I've lost count, mate. So I can really talk on that topic. Husbands, I can talk about. Let's do this. Right. So, look, it is a challenge. And can I say, I was screaming at the television set. I think it was the final debate when there was Donald Trump, and I've written on Donald Trump. So, hello. So there's Donald Trump, and he got in the women that Bill had some dalliances with, and they were in the crowd. I'm sure everyone remembers this. And this poor woman, Hillary, was having to talk about ethics and decency to Donald Trump, who, how many times had he gone bankrupt? How many women are out there? I mean, we had that fantastic woman who explained his penis in some depth because he had paid her to have sex with her. So all this grotesque stuff. And Hillary couldn't make a clean hit, because if Bill had just kept his bloody zipper up, then she could go, I have a wonderful daughter. I have an outstanding husband. I have lived a life of decency and ethics. And of course she had. But because Random couldn't keep his zipper up, she lost the ability to get the high ground. And I think in many ways that probably cost her, because it created a culture of equivalence between Hillary Clinton's behaviour because of Bill and Donald Trump's socio-sexual debacle over his entire career. I mean, Hugh Hefner without the dressing gown. I mean, sort yourself out, right? So that's a real problem. So and let's just deal with straight women for the moment, because I want to really talk about, I want to make sure we have a lot of attention on lesbians and leadership. It's very important to me. And there's some very interesting emerging research happening there, mainly in high degree theses in the States, about lesbians and leadership, that is really great literature, and I really hope that comes through. But for heterosexual women, we've got all sorts of problems. I mean, Lynn Siegel studied this, 20 years ago, but heterosexual women, we sleep with the enemy, right? So we've got a problem. We start there, right? So we sleep with these people. And then we sort of have to manage the contradiction in our own minds, colleagues, of like, we actually look at a penis, we see a penis, and we know that surely cannot be the basis of a social system, right? Like, just look at it. Look at a flaccid penis is not the basis of a culture, right? And so we sort of go, wow, this is, so we have to live with these contradictions, okay? And so therefore, when we come to, and we've been lied to, think about all the fairy tales we've been lied to, like love and slippers and Prince Charming and whatever the hell all that nonsense is about. And so we've had that narrative. And so then we find ourselves a bloke, we accidentally fall on a bloke, and then he falls back, and then you end up somehow married and there's a mortgage. Then we are judged by that person. So I have been, I've had 2 magnificent marriages with 2 senior academics, can I say? And the unbelievable thing, and I'll talk particularly about Steve, those of you that know Steve Redhead, he sacrificed his academic career so that I could kick on. Wow. So he was 17 years older than me, and I remember him saying to me when we got married, he said, I've made a lot of mistakes, and I want to make sure that you learn from those so we can enable your career. Now, I wouldn't be here without that commitment from that remarkable straight white man. So that's the first thing. I married well, right? Then I lost him. And can I say, there's nothing more frightening than sitting behind next to a bed with your dead husband on it, and then having to get up the next morning, and then you're a widow, right? And then you're wandering around the campus like the Black Widow, right? And then you're frightening, because then like blokes say, oh God, she kills people, right? So then the widow space is very bloody complicated, right? That's like, oh, here's a dangerous bird. It's like, oh no, what's she going to do? And then luckily, you know, I've met Jamie, and of course Jamie is moving to a more senior role than me. I'm going from a dean post at this juncture, a dean post to a professorial post, so that I can support him being a head of school. So I've married well, and in some ways the gift that Steve gave to me, I'm paying forward. And so because I come from a working class background, it's always been about the family and a family economy and that sort of social justice imperative. So I don't know if this is helping at all, but you've got to marry well. And if you make a mistake, it will cost you. If a bloke makes a mistake, it doesn't. If a woman does, it costs you. So that's what we have to be aware of. And that's what we need to stop. A woman, because you see, a woman's not whole. A woman's not a whole human. And that's why the husband matters. If a woman is a whole human, then who she's put it about with doesn't matter at all. But because we're sort of implicated with the penis stuff, that has a consequence on our career. Have we got Maeve, gorgeous Kath? Is that beautiful, Maeve?
Yes.
Yes, I did see Maeve's hand up.
Yes, and Barbara B also wants a question. I'll take mine first, seeing as how you've opened that one. I am, as always, deeply inspired by listening to you, and it always makes me think that I can do more than whatever I thought I could before I sat down with you for an hour.
Yeah, you can, Maeve, you can.
Thank you, darling. How do we support each other as women? What's your advice to, you know, here we all are on this call.
Yeah.
Some Flinders, perhaps some not, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, what have you learned? I know that you have developed an incredibly thick skin, because you can take that armored BS, you know. But say me, I'm going to crumble a bit more than you when I hear that. So I wonder, you know, how do we support each other if we haven't developed that incredible, you know, most of the time I don't care about what people think of me, and in the end I always do what I think is my right.
You do?
I do, but at the same time I do care about what important people to me think of me. I don't care about what, you know, I don't care about whatever, but I do care about people that I want.
Yes.
A relationship with. So I just put the general idea, here we all are.
Yes.
We're all going to be very affected by this, I think. How do we support each other as women? What's your views around that?
The first thing is, as we've talked about, Maeve, is never, ever sit in silence when injustice is happening to another human. So the first thing must always be, you see something weird happening, and even if you can't diagnose it, we all just need to summon enough courage to intervene and stop, do an intervention in the process. And I think, Maeve, the second thing that wonderful people on this call can do is we can write references for each other. I'm a big believer in you need to be able to nail down, as we all know as colleagues, great people that you can rely on for your entire life. And that's how people get the jobs. And so if there is a person in, you know, it's got the posh title and got a bit of dough, then that person has a responsibility to write references to help the next person up. And I don't know if Jackie, are you still on this call, Jack? Jack, darling, you still on this call? I'm looking at Jackie Hewitt. She might have disappeared. But Jackie Hewitt, of course, wonderful professor at Griffith University. I cannot tell you how often Jackie and I have written references for each other. When one of us is down on our luck, the other one lifts them up. And that happens in publishing, in teaching awards, in everything. And so it's a real example of find those communities of women in particular and support each other. And one reference at a time, a career develops.
Right. Fabulous. Thank you.
You're the best, mate. Have we got legendary Barb? Can I go to the legendary Barb, Kath?
Yeah, absolutely.
Love you, Barb.
Thanks, Kath. Thanks, Tara. I've got two things to say. The first, Tara, is a bit of a tribute to you, and just reflecting on you today, but also how I've experienced you at the university over recent years or over the time you've been here. I think one of the things that you contribute in your leadership is an expression of love.
Yeah.
I would only try to emulate, but you do it in a very particular, as you've said yourself, weird and crazy way. But the last time I was in a session like this with you, some kind of postgraduate HDR training session, you addressed everyone as you were doing today by always saying, "Oh, you're fabulous, my wonderful friend," etc. And I came away from that 1 hour session feeling absolutely fabulous. Yeah. And so that's just a tribute to spending an hour with you. I didn't learn much, in terms of,
like content and stuff,
content, but I left feeling absolutely fabulous, and it made my day. So, and I think it is about an expression of love. Like you have a very eccentric style, but that's how I'm thinking would be the way to describe what you do, and it makes an enormous difference. My tribute.
Oh, thank you.
I wanted to say was listening to this discussion, I'm thinking about what is perhaps an old-fashioned concept, the idea of leading from below, because I feel like I've got to the point where I don't want to take on any kind of management role above where I am now. And that's partly because I don't particularly want to do the work. I quite like the teaching and the research that makes up my role at the moment. But also I can't see how, if I took up a role above where I am now, like a dean in a college, hypothetically, yeah, I feel like I would lose the balance that I feel I'm now at, where I can support and represent my peers and those below me, but also have the capacity to speak up in a way that is challenging, honest, and can be quite powerful. I think the more one moves up, then the less one, just by the nature of the roles, the less one can kind of represent and be with the people who are the most important people in the organisation. I understand someone has to do the management roles, and I think you've done a fabulous job in yours. But to me, there's this idea of leading from below.
Yes.
And a line where if I went further up above, I'd kind of lose
yourself.
Capacity to do what I think is most important, which is to be with my people, I guess. So.
And that's why, Barb, you are an amazing human being. The model I use for this, Barb, and I wrote a piece on this a few years ago, is leading from the back. So I love your model more, but I called it leading from the back because obviously I base my model on wolves because I'm quite obsessed by wolves, right? And so how wolves organise their leadership structure is the leaders are at the back with the older crew, the younger crew, the crew that are having some walking difficulties. Now, the advantage of being at the back is you can set the pace so the crew can stay together. The other advantage of being in the back is you can see what's in front of you. You can see the vista, you can see the vision, you can plan. So you're keeping the team together. You are respecting the crew that need a little bit more time and energy to get themselves together. You're learning something because you're with the elders. You're learning things. You're with the younger crew, you're learning something, so you get the cross-generational knowledge and you're keeping the team together while seeing the threat that's coming. So for me, leading from the back is my model, but I think your leading from below or beneath is magnificent.
And can I just add on another matter? Thank you for mentioning this emerging literature on lesbian leadership or whatever it was you said, because I mean, I'll follow that up. It sounds really interesting because I think that the difference between being a lesbian in a leadership position and being a heterosexual woman, and that doesn't describe the full spectrum of possibilities, but just for the moment, I think it's a big difference. I think it's a big difference. And my experience would be that lesbians have an enormous advantage.
Look, they do. And I've read two fantastic theses, PhD theses, Barb, that were looking at community colleges. So what was happening is these remarkable women, these remarkable lesbians had claimed authority, got sick to death of the crap they were seeing above them and went, I'm going to do this. And so they were in a community college. And because, of course, the structure's a little bit groovier bit more space in it, they were able to succeed and transcend and transform. And so that's the literature at the moment, that's community college. We now need to see what is going to occur, you know, through the Ivy League and beyond. But I'll send you those links, Barb, to remarkable PhD theses, empirical qual quant, changed my life. Changed my life. And exactly what you've said is what this research is showing. Where we going?
Okay, so we have got 7 minutes left, and I am sure that other people will have questions that they want to ask. I'm not sure I can see everybody's hands.
Now that Jackie Hewitt has returned, I mean, I'll go to Monique and I'll go to Monique. Can I just, Jackie Hewitt, have you've been busy with cats once more?
Well, no, I had to duck out to an assessment board meeting, Tara.
Well, fair enough too. I just talked about us in your absence, about how valuable you and I writing each other references has been for the last 25 years. Would you just like to nod or radically disagree with me like you always do?
Can you hear me?
I can, Angel.
Great. No, I think it's been really wonderful and incredible, and I think because we know each other's work, and we also know that we're decent people. Well, I know you're a very decent person. Can't say that for myself. That's been really, really helpful, and I think if you do know that someone is just an ethical, decent human, then you can write a far better reference than if you just, you know, vaguely know them, and I don't know, you're not really sure what they get up to when it comes to working with other people and dealing with other people. No, I don't mean in their private lives.
Yes, we've shared that. We've had a few keys in a bowl organisations, haven't we, Jack?
Yeah. 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 Yeah, having that person you can call on to write those references is really good. So those relationships are just worth their weight in gold, really. And, you know, Tara and I had talked about this in a couple of recent vlogs, where two women professors being friends for 25 years, it's pretty rare, you know, because you lose friends along the way. There's no doubt about it. And I've kind of got a rule that I just broke recently, and I'm hoping it's not going to break the friendship. I don't think it will, but my rule now is don't work with friends, because it just, you know, I think that's where things can go really, really wrong. Yeah.
And it's funny, Jack, I've been saying to people at Flinders, I'm of more use to you in Massey than I am here. And no one's believed me, but I think they may now. You rock, Jack. Should we go to the wonderful Mon? How are you, Mon?
Hello. And actually, I won't ask my question now because it's not very fully formed, but I now will just take this chance to say before we almost finish, I'm sure there's maybe more questions, but we will miss you enormously. You've been an incredible personal inspiration, but also just how to, and this is where my question was going, so I'll just say it as not a question, but I think you're an incredible strategizer and problem solver. And so actually I will say it. So I think in this environment where often we're told, well, we can't actually do anything about these awful decisions we're having to make, you know, austerity measures, saving money. I think sometimes that can be quite paralysing for people that might want to be brave. I'm not a particularly brave person, but that might want to be. But how do you strategise in an environment where you're getting told those kinds of things? So that's really where I was going with that question.
Yeah, and look, two answers to that, Mon. It's a great question. The first answer is, as we started this conversation, my trope of leadership, live in the moment. So be with people in this moment, you know, with the emotion. You've seen me do this. Just sit with someone, look them in the eye, hold their hand and go, right, okay, We're not going to leave this space until we have 3 or 4 options for you to get out of this alive. That's the first thing. And secondly, I suppose I've been a head of school and head of department and all this stuff. And Mon, I've been given what's called a one-line budget. So that's you run your whole school on a one-line budget, right? And the one-line budget I've been given every year was below payroll. So I was given a one-line budget that didn't even pay for staff wages. Okay, so that's the scale of the neoliberal university. But I didn't panic. And every year, I'm now sort of 10 years of pretty high leadership, I've never returned a red budget. And that's not because I've sacked people. I've been instructed to sack people, and we've done it with decency. And I think I had to sack 86 people at the University of Bolton. And I saw each of them individually, and we had a cry, and we made sure that every single human got another job. Every single human got another. We held them by the hand. We wrote the references. We got them another job. But I suppose, Mon, what my career has stood for is when I get the crazy budget, I sit with it. Yeah. I don't panic. And the last answer is redundancy. The last answer, not the first answer. The last answer. If we sit in the problem, people naturally leave. We can manage other things. You know, people would prefer to be in work than go on a conference. So involve the people, show everyone the budget. When I was head of school, here is our budget, colleagues. This is what we've been given. Full transparency, nothing hidden. Here is the budget. Now, what can you see that I can't? You are brilliant people. Amazing. What are we going to do, team? And if you, again, leading from the back, the wolves, use the expertise of the wolves, then it's amazing. Every single year, I've returned a black budget, which matters because it's Australian taxpayers' money. And the people who never get a chance to go to university have paid the taxes so that we've had a chance to go. So every dollar must be accountable.
Amazing. Yes.
I love you. Very, very, very much. Kath, where are we going now, Angel?
Okay, well, look, it's 11:29. I've never been in a meeting with you that goes over by more than 1 or 2 minutes. So I suspect that that we need to wrap up. But we've had some really brilliant questions. And as I've been jotting down questions, someone has come and asked it in their own brilliant way. And I suppose I've got here on my page in capital letters, leading from the back, service, protecting the vulnerable. And, for me, generosity is the word that comes to mind when I think about my interactions with you and with students and with colleagues, and living in the moment, which is really interesting. And I wasn't necessarily expecting that from today. So these are all things that I will take away. I'm yet to be persuaded that we will get more from your presence in the world when you're, across the ditch, but I'm hopeful. And I just wanted to say a very big thank you for doing this at sort of the last minute. When you said you were leaving, I was like, we really need to grab you before you go. And I'm sure you're flat out, but a very big collective thanks from all of us for everything you have done and for this last hour, which has been really wonderful.
Oh, look, Kath, colleagues, thank you so much. I'm stunned and sort of amazed that we've had this time. But look, we've shared this moment. I will never forget this moment. We've sucked the marrow out of this moment. And let's all go forward, be fabulous, be amazing, go out there and let's break some stuff. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's be the change that we want to see. Rock and roll. Out, Kath.
Thank you so much, Tara.
Love yous all. You. Be fabulous. Love you. Love you, Jack. Love you, Kath. Love you, Mon. Love you, other Mon. Love everybody. Party on. Barb, I'll send the literature. See you soon.